Hey everyone, and welcome back to Lady in the Library. So today I wanted to talk about the life of Rebecca Lee Crumpler, the very first African-American woman to receive her medical degree and also one of the first to publish a medical book. Rebecca definitely was a determined and brave woman who knew what path she wanted to take, and by doing so helped pave the way for others. So let's start at the beginning. Rebecca was born on February 8, 1831 in Christiana, Delaware to parents Matilda Weber and Absalom Davis. She was raised by her aunt, who cared for her neighbors much like a community doctor. This upbringing had a significant influence on young Rebecca, and with her aunt's encouragement, decided to become a doctor. She would later write in her book titled Book of Medical Discourses in 1833 that, having been reared by a kind aunt in Pennsylvania whose usefulness with the sick was continually sought, I early conceived a liking for and sought every opportunity to relieve the suffering of others. Rebecca went on to attend the West Newton English and Classical School in Massachusetts. She was a very bright student and gifted in mathematics. In 1852, 21-year-old Rebecca moved to Charlestown, Massachusetts, and was employed as a nurse. She later wrote, "I devoted my time when best I could to nursing as a business, serving under different doctors for a period of 8 years, from 1852 to 1860. Most of my time at my adopted home in Charlestown, Middlesex County, Massachusetts." That same year, on April 19th, Rebecca married Wyatt Lee, a Virginia native and former slave. Unfortunately, her husband died due to tuberculosis, then called consumption, in 1863, just 1 year before her graduation from medical school. It must have been absolutely heartbreaking to be studying medicine, but at the same time, you can't save your husband from this awful disease. Unfortunately for them, there was no cure for tuberculosis until the mid-1900s. In 1860, Rebecca was accepted into the New England Female Medical College. Rebecca, being very talented as a medical apprentice, her supervising doctor recommended her to the school. Several other doctors also wrote letters of recommendation on her behalf. Now, in those days, it was rare for women to be admitted into medical school, let alone men and women of color to be accepted. But due to the heavy demands of caring for Civil War veterans, more opportunities became available. To put it into perspective, that year there were 54,543 physicians in the United States. 300 of them were women, and of those 300, none of them were African American women. Once the Civil War had begun, she was forced to quit school, but once she was able to return in 1863, her financial aid was no longer available. Rebecca later won a tuition award from the Wade Scholarship Fund, which had been established by the Ohio abolitionist Benjamin Wade. Rebecca completed 3 years of coursework, her thesis, and gave her final oral examinations in February 1864. An issue arose when the faculty thought that she, quote, made slow progress in learning. Still, her supporters helped persuade the board to rightfully pass her, especially since there was a lack of substantial evidence to support their initial thoughts. On March 1st, 1864, the school board of trustees named her Doctor of Medicine. Not only did she become the first African-American woman to earn a degree in the United States, but the only black woman to graduate from this school before it closed down due to financial problems in 1873. This school would later become the Boston University School of Medicine. Rebecca would then first practice medicine in Boston, primarily for poor women and children. On May 24, 1865, Rebecca married Arthur Crumpler, a man who had escaped slavery and worked as a blacksmith for the Union Army. After the Civil War ended in 1865, the couple moved back to Richmond, Virginia, where she believed it to be a proper field for missionary work and one that would present ample opportunities to become acquainted with the diseases of women and children. During my stay there, nearly every hour was improved in that sphere of labor. The last quarter of the year, 1866, I was enabled to have access every day to a very large number of indigent and other different classes, in a population of over 30,000 colored. Dr. Crumpler also took a position with the Freedmen's Bureau, caring for newly freed slaves. Unfortunately, she was subject to racism and I'm sure sexism as well by being a female doctor. Quote, men doctors snubbed her, druggists balked at filling her prescriptions, and some people wisecracked that the MD behind her name stood for nothing more than mule driver. It really goes without saying that this behavior towards her was absolutely cruel, unjustified, and unacceptable behavior. Later on, when the couple moved back to Boston, her neighborhood in Joy Street, Beacon Hill was a predominantly African American community. She, quote, entered into the work with renewed vigor, practicing outside and receiving children in-house for treatment, regardless in a measure of remuneration. While living at 20 Garden Street in December of 1870, the couple welcomed their only child, Lizzie Sinclair Crumpler. Rebecca and Arthur were also active members of the 12th Baptist Church, where Arthur was a trustee, and when Massachusetts Senator Charles Sumner died in 1874, she attended his service and spoke in his honor. Quote, Rebecca Crumpler, M.D., read a beautiful original poem of the death of Sumner, wherein she touchingly alluded to his love for the gifted Emerson. In 1880, the family moved to Hyde Park, Boston. By 1883, she was no longer practicing medicine when she published her book called A Book of Medical Discourses. She used the notes she kept over her long medical career to fill its pages, and it was dedicated to nurses and mothers, focusing on the care of women and children. While there is a sketch of Arthur from the Boston Daily Globe in 1898, it seems that no photos of Rebecca exist, but there is a description of her from the Boston Globe that says, quote, she's a very pleasant and intellectual woman and an indefatigable church worker. Dr. Crumpler is 59 or 60 years of age, tall and straight, with light brown skin and gray hair. Rebecca Crumpler died on March 9, 1895, and is buried at the Fairview Cemetary near her residence in Hyde Park. Her husband, Arthur, passed several years later in 1910. As you can see, Rebecca and her husband lay in an unmarked grave. At the time of filming this video, the Friends of the Hyde Park Library has joined with the Hyde Park Historical Society to raise money to install a proper headstone dedicated to the couple. I'll leave the link down below. The Rebecca Lee Society, one of the first medical societies for African American women, was named in her honor. And her home on Joy Street is a stop on the Boston Women's Heritage Trail. So in summary, it's very important to remember women like Rebecca Lee Crumpler. Resilient, compassionate, smart, and tough as nails. She knew what she wanted to be in life, and she let nothing stand in her way. She was also born in a time era where being female alone had its significant disadvantages, but also being a woman of color made it even harder. She is definitely an inspiration, and I never stop being amazed by what women can or have achieved in history. Their stories are out there, and they deserve to be told. So thank you everyone for watching Lady in the Library, where we explore history one page at a time. If you enjoyed this content and would like to see more in the future, please hit that like and subscribe button, and also the notification bell to be alerted for when the next video is posted. Until next time guys, take care. Bye!